ounce and not allow them to, there are not the types of resources available for these men of color to be able to have other options. And I think we need to start looking more clearly at social fabric building. But I didn't want to get sidetracked on social justice. But Mustang, I did want to refer to you and get your insight or your thoughts that you were just getting ready to share.
Okay, so this is for you and for everybody else who is strongly, who's against the KKK, the neo-Nazis, and the white supremacists. And of course, I'm against all those things, obviously, of course. I don't know any sane person, and let me rephrase that into something that sounds a little better. I don't know any sane person that would be okay with that. So again, let me try that one more time. I don't know any sane person that is okay with the KKK, the neo-Nazis,
well,
the white supremacists.
Right. But there is someone. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Let me say, right, yeah, right. But again, now mind you, we're talking about sane people.
Sane people, that's right. Sane people. There you go. That's right. I like that. I like
person
that.
Who says this is okay, the KKK, the neo-Nazis, and white supremacists. Now, a lot of people say, Chris, I don't understand, especially people in my own family. What are you talking about? They're good people on both sides. You're jumping in with Trump. You're getting trust me, him and I could not be farther in the opposite direction on a lot of the things and the disposition that he just has as a person. Some of the things his party stands for, I'm okay with. A lot of the things, but him and I could not be farther, on the opposite sides of the map. But I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she had a situation. She had a big problem with, I think, her mother, and she had a problem with her sister. And long story short, I was telling her, I said, before you go out here, because she was saying, I'm having a problem. I feel like she's yelling at me and she's saying all these things and this, that, and the other. And I said, listen, the first thing you're going to have to do if you want to change other people is you've got to start with yourself. Now, of course, that sounds so basic and so cliche. You got to change yourself or you change everybody else. But let me offer this. Okay, because I'm not here to talk strongly against the KKK, the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists. I'm here to talk to those people who stand against them and they want to make a change. If that extreme side, if they're yelling their viewpoint and you're yelling your point, not only does no one get heard, but all the people who are listening are just ruined. They just see two sides arguing. That's all they see. And literally, it's one of your kids comes to you and says, Mommy, Daddy, she was hitting me. And the other one, Mommy, Daddy, she was hitting me. And both of them have black eyes. You're going to sit there and say, listen, you both need to sit out. Okay. That's kind of, let me explain that to those people. But me and my wife are reading, and I'll lay this out for everybody. Me and my wife are reading to our children. This was actually today. We're reading the story of Jonah. And there's something so profound about this story I didn't really pay attention to. So as most people know, God asked Jonah to go to Nineveh, and he instead got on a boat heading in the opposite direction, going to Tarshish. God caused, a big storm. The guys on the boat threw Jonah overboard, and, everybody knows the rest. A great fish swallowed him up. Well, the powerful part about the story is the second time around, Jonah did what God said. Now, there were 120,000 people in Nineveh, and all were saved because of one man. Now, I asked my children, I said, now, what did Jonah have to do first before he could be used to save 120,000 people? Now, my two daughters, they gave some pretty good answers, but my 4-year-old son is the one who actually answered it correctly. To change 120,000 people, the first person Jonah had to change was himself, because he was terrified. The people of Nineveh were known for not being the best people in the world. They were afraid that he was afraid that they would kill him or stone him. They would mock him or laugh at him or whatever, and rightly so. We would all be terrified. But he had to first put his faith in what he could not see, God, and change his own behavior. And as a result, caused an entire city to fast, pray, and be saved. He had to begin with a man in the mirror, so to speak. So the same thing I am urging all of you who want to yell and say this is wrong and this is terrible. The reason they don't know is because the reason they are doing what they're doing is because they don't know. If they knew who you were, if they know who you are, if they see your good side, they see, you loving and you helping and is that your car over there? Is that your whatever? I don't know, truck, pickup truck, whatever. I tell you what, I've got some water here. Let me wash that thing for you. What crazy person what crazy black man would, and I say brown here in this house because that's the color we are, but what crazy brown black man would wash a neo-Nazi's car? What lunatic would do that? And that's exactly what that guy's thinking to himself. Why would you do this? After all I've done to you, why would you do this? That's the same love that Jesus showed for us. Think about all of the things we have done, lying, cheating, just every single thing. We can sit there and list them. I think me and my daughters and my kids went through it, and we listed like 10 things that us as parents had forgiven them for. And my daughter had a friend that was upset with her for something. It was one or two things. These guys are upset with us for one or two things when Jesus has forgiven us for all of these things that we have done in our life. And we can't forgive them for one or two things and show them the love that he's shown us. Remember, we were once lost. Don't forget, we were once sleeping around with our secretaries. We were once trying to chase girls around. We were once the people that were cursing and slandering and getting drunk and getting high and doing all these things. And now all of a sudden we want to turn around and, oh, we're high and mighty. Look at those dirty guys over there. We need to remember we were once them, but in a different sin. So that's what I'm trying to get to all these people who want to go on the other side. There's a different way to do it. Let's not just yell our point across.
I like your comments, and I think that they bear a great resemblance to our notion of the Christian ideal, and I think that's really what you're discussing. I think I would like to offer two comments, and the first one is that I think you're absolutely right. Love is the only thing that's going to allow us to meet this hate. I do not believe that we should not communicate with the other side. It's one of the reasons you mentioned service to those people who suffer with those issues. And it's interesting because one of the secessionists that I spoke with was actually a patient. I mean, he has very clear ideas about his love for General Lee, and it's unique in that I'm serving him, and of course we are of different races, and he has some very interesting ideas. Most of them I don't agree with, but I've taken the time to listen. And I do believe that through communication, hard discussions, and showing other sides to an issue does facilitate, if both people are willing, facilitate the opportunity for enlightenment on both sides. And I do think that having, self-proclaimed, I think at some point in life I probably saw most of the oppression to people of color, particularly because of the state that I grew up in, directed. And I really kind of lumped all people who were white together. And that wasn't really an accurate thing to do, which now, of course, I don't do that. I spend more time taking one-on-one relationships for what they are, and also trying to foster a unified community is much more important than divisions on the basis of race and social class and finances and et cetera, et cetera. However, I do believe that those who are in government and who are in leadership positions and who are in policy-making positions, who are elected to protect and unify a nation, bear a responsibility in terms of setting the moral compass of what is acceptable and what isn't. And I applaud Reagan, and I applaud Obama, and I applaud Clinton and many of the others who have spoken on these issues about the importance of that there is a wrong way to speak to people, and that hate groups in particular that speak negatively solely on the basis of race are wrong. Now, I know that's, again, I'm redirecting it because you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't take that approach and totally throw everybody in a particular class out. Just like I do believe that speaking solely about neo-Nazis and hate groups, we've got to spend some time not only to understand those groups in some ways, but we also need to find ways to re-educate. And I think it's really, really, really important that we go through this process. Now, they're not going to be, I mean, we think about the, African-American guy who has brought many of the Klan members out of the Klan. And we also think about many of the racist patients that I've had to serve. And I'm sure that many of us on this panel have had to serve people who really would rather see us die, but need us for a particular thing that requires just our unique skill set. But at the end of the day, I believe caring, compassion, and humility wins over the hardened heart, and the representation of Jesus Christ in our lives will impact those other folks' lives. So to that end, I do agree. But I do think that we need to establish policy as a government that there are certain kinds of behavior which we've gone to world wars over that we do not want to have here, and that we are the United States of America, and we are of one race, the human race. And the human race means that when we all prosper, we all prosper. And making sure that we look out for the best interests of our unified group makes us stronger as a country. But dividing us on the basis of race alone is simply not the right direction to go. And by making sure that we are clear on the path forward, meaning that, hard conversations can be had, but we cannot solely stop at saying, you can't have any people of color on the planet. I mean, we just want to kill them all. That's ridiculous. And I'm sorry, I just can't get there. I just think that's ridiculous. And I loving Jesus Christ and all, Jesus Christ was a man of color, and he grew up in a complete, in the northern part of the African continent, and we still call it the Middle East. So, and those are the people we're trying to bar from getting here as well. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion for other reasons, but I just think we've got to really stand behind this notion of solely on the basis of race is not an excuse for disenfranchising people. It's not, and it's wrong to do that. And, I could imagine if I'm going to take the last 2 minutes and say one thing. If I chose not to care for people on the basis of race alone, then there would be a lot of people who come through, our clinic who I would turn away because they don't look like me. And there are a lot of people who have gone every other place, and by the time they get to me, they have no other choice. And I think that if I didn't have a heart of compassion to look at even the racist, the secessionist, the bigot, the person who would rather have me dead, who right up the road probably hung that effigy that is right on the highway, just up the road, and supports the Klan, I have to still serve that person. And I do it because I do believe that the love of Jesus Christ is more important than simply having a worldview. But I do think that if we don't stand up and simply say all love will cover all, that there are some people who don't understand the word no, and we will have to stand against that as a unified group of people, not just people of color, but people who are willing to say that this ideology is wrong and we must stand against it. This has been Conversations from the Cave. We're going to come back after the break, and we are going to cover another half of this topic, as well as discuss the issue of how to deal with what we're dealing with now and how to move beyond it. All right, we'll be back after the break.
Conversations from the Cave is brought to you by the Alabama Cornea Care Center, Northern Alabama's first irregular cornea, keratoconus, and scleral lens referral center, specializing in the management of degenerative cornea disease and complications resulting from refractive surgery. For more information, you may visit them on the web at alabamacorneacare.com. The Alabama Cornea Care Center, helping patients see the light of the world. Conversations from the Cave is a production of the ProVox Media Group. For more information or to share your questions or comments, visit our podcast Facebook page by searching Conversations from the Cave. The views expressed on this program are the personal beliefs of the panelists and do not necessarily represent the beliefs of the ProVox Media Group or its sponsors. Join us next time for more real talk from real men. Conversations from the Cave.